Hey everyone, it is week 5 fantasy football. We are close to halftime in the game between the Vikings and the Jets. Wow. My opinion, Brees Hall is splitting way too much time with Braylon Allen. Hey, Allen's a nice running back. I get it. Braylon Allen can continue to play well, but Brees Hall's a superstar. And the Jets are impossible to figure out. You ride your superstar, he will eventually make big plays happen. But the more he's on the bench, the less of a rhythm he gets into. And we continue to see him probably pressing now with limited opportunities. Again, what a disaster of an organization. I use that word a lot lately, but it's probably right. Nathaniel Hackett stuck in the Stone Age with his offense, running some of these old concepts that just don't account for defenses who are moving. You saw the Van Ginkel interception. Defenses are commonly dropping players back into coverage at the snap. Maybe Aaron Rodgers should have seen that coming, but just the offensive concepts allow the defense to dictate to the Jets. And as a result, the Jets are in real trouble. Aaron Jones hurt with a hip injury. 17-0 now. Don't know if they're going to need him in the game if he's able to come back, but he didn't look like he was in great shape. Stacey Dales was reporting about, him and trying to do some work on his hip, and he didn't look great. So we'll see what happens and all that. But never a boring, dull moment in fantasy football. All right, let's get to some questions here. I had somebody, Joseph, did a super chat, so thank you for that. Stevenson or Gibson? Right now, look, they're both going to play, right? Gibson's drawing the start. I don't know what the doghouse rules are for Ramondre Stevenson. Based on that, I think you got to start Gibson because he can catch the ball. There's that. I don't know there's a good rushing matchup for either one against Miami. Miami without Jalen Phillips certainly helps, but I think that you play the guy who's starting because he'll have the opportunity. And how many times they're going to be at the goal line where Stevenson might be able to punch one in from there anyway. Gibson has a chance to break an explosive play. So look, they named him the starter. We don't know what that really means, but I think you got to play Gibson. And then Fields or Jordan Love. Fields couldn't have a better matchup against Dallas. No pass rushers. They really can't stop the run, which means that Fields is probably going to be running. Shamplin's their backup running back, and Patterson, Warren are out, but maybe Justin Fields is their second running back the way it goes behind Najee Harris. And so that's it. Fields has a high floor in this game. He should be a big part of what they do. Now, it could be a lower scoring game. So that said, it's very hard to sit Jordan Love. Now, the same thing can happen with Green Bay. If Green Bay is running successfully and they get a lead, they might not need to really open it up against the Rams. Now, can the Rams score points? Yes. So I think in this case, look, we've seen Jordan Love now for over half a season get it done for fantasy almost every week. So I just think, look, Fields has a very, very good matchup, but Love is a star level quarterback. And Dontavian Wicks is a great number 2 for them, even though we don't have Watson, we don't have Dobbs. I don't think that hurts them that much. Both have downside for game script reasons, but I'm just going to recommend going with Jordan Love here because the game could shoot out. I don't think there's much shootout potential in the Pittsburgh game. So that's the way I'll go with that. All right, let's get to the questions on the stream here. Julian, Judy or Keon Coleman? I think Keon Coleman is going to see at least half of the time Derek Stingley, and that's a bad matchup for him. Derek Stingley's like a stud corner. Jerry Judy, he's getting his 4 or 5 catches a game, but that's been a floor. Keon Coleman, his floor could be 1 catch. And even though I think the Shakir being out, I think that benefits Curtis Samuel because he plays the slot, and that's where Shakir plays a lot. So overall, I think I go with Judy because I feel he's safer. Eric, next. And I'm just watching this play here. A minute and a half in the end of the first half. Good morning to you as well. Juju or Dalvin Cook beat the waiver. Juju is. If you look back to the game logs from 2022 when Juju last played there, he had a bunch of 70-yard plus games through week 12. It was a big number of them. And it was funny because when Patrick Mahomes said that when Juju came back, he was excited about it. Juju Smith-Schuster, we know he's not a great player, but they're going to need a possession guy in this offense. It can't just be Kelsey. And Juju Smith-Schuster, he's getting Sky Moore. Sky Moore's not going to be the possession guy. So Juju has a rapport that he built in 2022 before the concussions, and he had some issues at the end of that year. But I think Juju's the world there. Dalvin Cook, look, he was washed last year. He hasn't seen the field yet, and they've needed a running back. Nobody touched him all summer. So I would think that Juju is the play here. I don't think Dalvin Cook is better than Ezekiel Elliott at this point. So if Cook gets on the field once, I don't think that lasts long. Trey, good morning to you as well. Start two. McLaurin, Jerome Ford, Josh Downs, Christian Kirk, and Jalen Waddle. Waddle's dangerous because of the quarterback situation. We saw they forced him some targets late. He put some real low level numbers up. New England's a good defense. And I'm going to have a hard time signing off on Waddle. Can he break a long play? Sure, he can break a long play, but we've seen in a couple of weeks, it's probably not the case. Jerome Ford should be a high floor play here. I think Jerome Ford is a very solid fantasy play here. I have, Cleveland is decent against the run, but I don't think they're anything. I'm sorry, not Cleveland. Washington is not lights out against the run in any way. So when Cleveland's going to use their running back, they'll use him as a receiver. He gets plenty of targets. I think he gets 7 last week. So I think that Ford's a strong floor play for you. But here's the thing. Josh Downs, we saw it last week with Joe Flacco. He's a great player and he looked great. He's a great slot receiver. And the Jets are getting a punt return here. They're in field goal range. All right. So anyway, I think that with Joe Flacco at quarterback, I think that you're kind of wheels up on Josh Downs. Christian Kirk, another great matchup for him. And I really think that Indy Jacksonville game shoots out. So it's going to be tough between those three. How many do you have? You need 2 PPI. So you need 2. McLaurin, I'm a little bit worried in this game. He had 2 good games in a row, but he's going to see a real pass rush this weekend, Jaden Daniels. And he hasn't seen that in 2 weeks. And as a result, he's had the downfield game. I don't know if that gets cooking here. So I'm a little more nervous about McLaurin because of that matchup. So in Chase Brown, probably not. Oh, no, wrong one here. So I think all that said, it's between Ford, Downs, and Kirk. I think Ford and Kirk are the safest for you. I think Downs has more upside than Ford. So I would say Ford if you want the floor, Downs if you want the boom bust. Christian Kirk off of 2 big games in a row and in a great matchup, I would go with Kirk for sure. Jay Red, good morning to you as well. PPR need a flex and a wide receiver. Atwell, Judy, Waddle, and Chase Brown. Atwell's had 2 good games, and there's nothing scary about the Packers matchup. Judy, as we said earlier, has a good floor. He gets 4 or 5 catches in a lot of games. I mean, he'll play 4 games, but he typically is getting targeted. So there's that. So, and then, like I said, Waddle is just, I don't even know there's a boom there. It's really hard to project it. Can he make, like I said, can he make a big play? Of course he can, but it's a real mess there right now. Chase Brown, not against the Ravens, probably. So I would say a wide receiver in a flex. I would be more inclined to just go with Judy and Atwell. But, if you just can't sit Waddle, then sit Atwell, because again, Atwell could turn up zeros at any time. So there'd be that, but he has been good. And last year through 7 weeks, he had a regular role and he was productive. But I don't know that Atwell's ceiling is high enough though to sit Waddle. So we probably just make it Judy and Waddle. That's probably the best way to go with that. Jay, Burrow or Murray? Burrow, I have my quarterback 11. The Ravens aren't great against the pass. They can get things going, but I imagine they're going to put some real pressure on Burrow here. Kyler Murray didn't rush last week, but before then he's averaging over 50 yards in the first 3 games. And I think that goes back. Fred Warner is supposed to be limited if he plays. So there's that. So I'd be more inclined to go with Murray for the rushing floor. I think that, Burrow, could he have a big game? Sure. But I think that there's a chance this game is lower scoring where I think Murray could be in a shootout. Buffalo defense over Houston. Well, the Buffalo's down. Buffalo's down Ed Oliver, though, and they're down Von Miller. They both are terrible. They both are terrible plays. I have no call on that. I have no call on that. Flip a coin. Seriously, who's the home team in the game? Let's see who the home team is in that game. Yeah, defense are so fickle, and they're both bad. They both have horrible matchups for their team. It's at Houston, so take Houston. That'd be the tiebreaker. The home team would be the tiebreaker, but neither is in a good spot here. That game's going to be a lot of scoring. All right, Trey. Well, I think I answered him. I must have been down one. I think I answered that for you already, right? Who got the touchdown? Ellen Lazard. All right. So, Trey, did I answer this for you? I'm trying to see here. Yeah, it looks like we got you already. You don't have Waddle in that one, though. All right, so it's Ford for floor, Downs for boom bust. Kirk is in. McLaurin, I don't like the matchup. Jeff, good morning. You have Mahomes in 2 leagues. You bench him over I don't Jaden Daniels. Oh, yeah, Jaden Daniels. I'll tell you about Daniel Jones. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, you gotta play him over Mahomes. Mahomes has not been a quarterback 1 since week 6 of last year, week 7. He's been a middling, option, and that's been it. He doesn't have any games over, he has very few games over 21 fantasy points, since week 7 of last year, and he has none over 21 this year. So, yeah, Jaden Daniels, your call. I'd probably play Fields over him. I probably would play Fields over him. I have Fields my quarterback 8 this week. Mahomes is my quarterback 13. Yeah, I would play Fields over him. Jeff, Wandale, Ayuk, Dell, and Jennings. Jennings did have a long catch last week, but again, he's just going to be back to that third or fourth option in the offense. And I mean, could the game shoot out and he could see something? Yes. Ayuk has to get better at some point, and Debo's another week healthier, and Kittle's on the field, and they're going to run Mason a lot. So Jennings is like the fifth option in the offense. That's hard. That's hard to trust them. Ayuk hasn't played well. He had 5 targets last week, 10 the week before. Dell hasn't had anything big. Wanda, I don't know if there's any ceiling here. He's going to need Devin Witherspoon a lot in the slot. I'd be more inclined to say the safest floor of them is Ayuk. But the player that could surprisingly have a big game would be Tank Dell, but there's downside there. So if you want the safest floor, it's Ayuk. If you want to go boom bust, it's Dell. Johnny, more in you as well. Deontay or Debo? I'm going to go Debo there. They're playing Arizona. Arizona shouldn't put up much resistance defensively. Deontay faces the Bears. He probably sees a decent amount of Jalen Johnson, and that, to me, that's not a good matchup. And Andy Dalton is probably under some level of pressure in this game. Remember that Dalton has had 2 very favorable matchups, and I think that's really helped to what he's done. Playing in Chicago against the Bears, I would go Debo there. Jeff, Lawrence, Jones, or Flacco? I'd go Flacco. I would go Flacco. He's got Downs. He's got Pittman. We saw them both go off. The matchup against Jacksonville. The offensive line, I think their center, Ryan Kelly, might be out in this game. I think he moved him to doubtful, but I still think the pass protection is good enough. And I do think that Flacco gets it done here. Trevor Lawrence, look, could he have a game? Yes. But I think we've learned since last year he's not playing well at all. He has very few useful fantasy games. If he has one on your bench, I think you live with it because he is just not a fantasy option right now. And Daniel Jones, yeah, I don't, there's really no upside there. He can't run out much like he used to. That ACL injury, he's not that big dynamic runner he was. And when you take that out, what do you have left? And he has no Malik Neighbors. So yeah, you got to go Flacco there, I think, my opinion. Ethan, good morning to you as well. You need receiver, 2 flex. Odunze, Slayton, Juju, Samuel, Chase Brown, Dowdle, Sermon. I would go with Sermon. I do think Sermon will have the lead in the backfield here, and it's a favorable matchup in the offensive line, even though Ryan Kelly should be fine. So there's that. And then I would go with Curtis Samuel replacing Khalil Shakir. Shakir's playing like all the slot. That's why Samuel's not doing anything. I think he moves into the slot in this game. I think it's an advantageous situation against Houston. And then last one's going to be tough. I don't like Chase Brown's matchup, but I've been inclined to put him third. Odunze's had 3 really rough games, but he had the one big game. But, with Keenan Allen getting healthier each week, I think those targets are going to get split up a lot too. So I got to worry about that. So I'll say this. I'll say Sermon's in as your flex, and I would say Curtis Samuel's in. And here's what I'll say for this one. Chase Brown should have a decent floor. So if you want some floor play, he should get you about 10 touches. But if you want to go risk a low score for maybe some upside, Odunze has a great matchup, and they have thrown him downfield. So that's a true boom bust play. But if you want safer in your close game, Chase Brown would be the call. Ethan, need 2, full point. Kirk, Wicks, Sermon, Ferguson. I would be inclined to go Kirk and Wicks here. The only worry about Wicks is if they run the ball so successfully in this game that they might not throw as much as we'd like, but it's hard to quantify that. The game could shoot out against the Rams. Sermon, again, I like him, but Kirk and Wicks should be integral parts of their offense here. Ferguson, I love him every week, but the Pittsburgh matchup may be especially nasty in that pass was getting on Dak. So I do worry about Dallas not scoring many points here. So I would be inclined to lean Kirk and Wicks here. Brian, good to see you, man. PF PPR, Christian Kirk or Alexander Madison. Kirk's got a lot of targets in the last 2 weeks. Remember, Madison had the one long run last week, but if you look at his box, he had a 4-for-1 and a touchdown. He has some volume, but man, he literally could go 15 carries for 21 yards. And if he doesn't find the end zone, he could get a couple catches. So there's a lot of volume opportunity. But man, Kirk has played so well the last 2 games, and he has a really easy matchup. I think the probability lies with Kirk there. Kevin or Kavan, Josh Downs or down. Oh man, that's a tough call. That's a real tough call. Both are in good situations. I think it's more probable that the Packers running game gets going than the Colts running game. And as a result, it would be more likely the Colts have to pass than the Packers will have to. Both of these receivers could go off. Game script is going to mean everything here. And that's the issue. I think the tiebreaker is the Jacobs thing. If Jacobs gets rolling, the passing may not be needed as much. I'm going to lean Downs, but it's 51% to 49. It's that close. If you have a gut feel, definitely go with it. Standard. Hello, YouTube user. Parkinson or Komet? Oh, I got some more super chat. I'm going to get to those as soon as I answer this question. So, all right. Komet, in theory, has an easy matchup here. Carolina can't stop much of anything. Parkinson, he gets some targets, but he doesn't seem to do a whole lot with them. I'm going to lean Komet here because I think the Bears have an easier time moving the ball and scoring some points. And then your flex, Stevenson or Flowers. Man, Flowers has gotten like nothing the last 2 weeks because they're running it so successfully. They don't have to throw it. So if they continue that, that's a problem. Stevenson, we don't know how true the benching is. Is it going to be a 50-50 now? We really don't know that. So I'm going to say, look, Flowers will be on the field. So I'm going to give Flowers the edge there because we really don't know the discipline Stevenson is. And then McLaurin, Hill, Shaheed, or Robinson. Shaheed is a tougher matchup. Wandale should get catches, but maybe not much after because of Witherspoon. McLaurin, I'm worried about the pass rush. I would tend to go with Tyreek here. They're going to they manufactured some touches last week. They missed him on a wide open touchdown too. So there's that. All right. I got a couple of super chat questions. I got to come back to Chris. All right. See what we got here. FZ Ware, Madison or Myers? Myers could see some of Patrick Surtain. I don't think he's going to shadow him, but Trey Tucker play inside more. Myers is the most likely if they've been moving Surtain. So if they do, Myers is the more likely player to have to deal with that. So I'm going to go with Madison, who should catch a few passes. If they do get to the goal line, he'd have the opportunity. But the PPR, Myers has a chance to have a potentially better floor, but Madison should have volume. I'm going to give Madison like a 55-45 edge here. And Steve O, Tyrone Tracy has like 12 carries on the year. He has a 0 percentile broken tackle rate, worst there is. He has a first percentile yards after contact, which is almost as bad as it gets. I really wonder if he is the change of pace back. And if he retains that role and Eric Gray steps in to the Singletary, we don't know. We have no idea. Seattle last week was down 4 or 5 of their front 7. Most of them are back. The only one that's injured is Boya Mafe, and he's questionable. He might play. So Tracy's risky. Tracy is very risky because, again, I'm not guaranteeing that he is the guy and all of a sudden it's his backfield. I really think this could be like a real split between him and Eric Gray because I don't know that either Tracy's that converted wide receiver. You know, we love the numbers from the testing, but he was like a wide receiver, and now he's trying to learn running back. So he's a very, very dicey play this week. He could surprise us. Maybe he comes out but Seattle is at home. Now Tracy could catch some passes, so there's that. And if he is, if he's gonna be the hurry up back, well, then maybe he catches 4 or 5 passes. So I think PPR, I think you have possibility because Seattle should play with the lead here. So I think that's something you got to look at as well. All right, let's see where I was at. Chris, I was on Chris. All right, morning, Chris. Jaden Daniels or Jordan Love. Somebody asked that same question, and I told them, no, they asked a similar question. I'm going to go Jaden Daniels here because I think, look, the matchup isn't great, but he has been a legit top 3 quarterback. And Jordan Love, if they run the ball with success here, They might not have to throw as much as we like. Um, I think at this point, Jaden Daniels, until he shows a reason to bench him, I don't think you can bench him. I would only put Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson ahead of him. Jordan Love could have a bigger game. It could happen. And Daniels could be in real trouble here, but he's just done too much to sit him, I think, at this point. Chris, Madison, Tracy, Whittington, or Atwell. Of this group, I'm going to go with Madison. Whittington got a bunch of short passes last week. There was that. Atwell, he's had two really good games, but 82 yards. I may have had like a 70 or something in there as well. But it's hard to bank on it three times in a row. He's not getting a lot of targets. Madison is the one that's kind of locked in for volume. Not a good running back, but we say volume's king in fantasy football. He's a pass catcher. He's their preferred goal line option if they get there. I would give Madison the edge for the somewhat certainty, no certainty ever, that we have. Kevin, need the following in a PPR: Brian Robinson or Alexander Madison. I'm going to go with Robinson here. Look, we don't know what the knee issue is. If you're nervous about it, bench him. But I don't know. We never know when this is maintenance for players, and we never know. And especially last week with Eckler out, Robinson might have got a little more work than he had. Maybe they're just spelling him there. I would tend to. Brian Robinson playing really well, and Cleveland's not like a lights out run defense against the run, and they're going to pass to their running backs a lot here because that pass rush is coming. So yeah, I would tend to give Brian Robinson. I'd go with the better player here. And then Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Wandale, and Kirk. I would say Kirk and Higgins have the best floors of those groups, and I put them above Madison without a problem. Hill, remember, they missed him on a deep touchdown last week. So I would say boom bust for Hill if you want to play him over Higgins. I don't think Higgins has a big game. He could, but I don't think he will. I think the Ravens will kind of neutralize him a little bit. So all that said, I think that's the way I would look at that. Let me just fix this. Okay. So, so I think we're definitely going Kirk, and then we're going Higgins for floor, and then Hill for boom bust over Higgins if you prefer to take that chance. Delroy, start three. DJ Moore, Wicks, Smith and Jigba, Flowers, Wandale, Robinson. And you're starting three. DJ Moore, again, in a revenge game against Carolina. I love him. Dontavian, Wicks. And you know what? And I'm going to go with JSN as well. The reason I'm bringing Flowers out is because Cincinnati's terrible against the run, and we saw the last 2 weeks, Lamar only attempted a total of 33 passes in 2 games. And if that's the way it's going to go, there's not enough to go around. 9 of the 18 passes went to running backs last week for there was nothing left for Flowers, nothing left for Andrews, nothing left for Likely. So in Wandale, again, I like his potential to see some targets here, but Devon Witherspoon's a tough matchup. So I'm going to go with Moore, Wicks, and JSN. Kevin, need 3.5 PPR. Eckler, Higgins, Judy, Madison, or Yoshi Voss. I do think Eckler catches some passes here because of the pressure that we're going to see from Cleveland, so I like him there. Higgins is a good floor play. I think Madison should have a similar floor to Judy. I think there's a chance for Judy to have real upside in this game because of the weak opponent they're facing, and he does run a lot of those shorter routes, and that could be some yards after the catch. So Eckler and Higgins for sure. Madison to be your safest floor play because he probably gets you 15 touches in the game. If you want to go boom bust over Madison, who I don't think has a big ceiling, it'd be Judy. Delroy, full PPR start 2. Flacco, Murray, Daniel Jones. I do like Flacco, but Murray, again, ran for, I think it's at least 47 yards in 3 of his first 4 games. Last week, he didn't run for much, but I don't think that was an issue. It was once one of those games, and the 49ers are not an elite defense right now, and I think that game could shoot out. I'm not going to sit Kyler. I'm not going to sit Kyler here. Flacco can always have an implosion game. And Murray had a bad game last week. I get it. But I think Flacco is more likely to come up with that game that we didn't see, the bad game we didn't see coming. Daniel Jones, I'm not going to consider him here. Rahendra, full point PPR, need one between Sermon, Ford, and I'm going to go with Ford. Ford is the most likely to see a pretty significant workload, and Washington's not a scary matchup. So that's where I'm going to go. Sermon's going to mix in with Goodson a little bit, and I trust Ford. And Chase Brown, I don't like the matchup against Baltimore so much. B. Ali, Myers, or Tracy? Oh, that's a tough one. That's a good question. Again, I really would like to know, everybody wants to know what Tracy's true workload is going to be and how much Eric Gray's going to be involved. Myers, again, we don't know how much of Patrick Surtain he's going to see, and that could be a little bit scary if he does. Myers is safer. Tracy is such an unknown, and he has, like I said, 0 percentile broken tackle. It's only 12 carries, but first percentile yards after contact. Those are scary numbers, even on 12 carries. And so, based on that, I'm going to give Myers the edge. But I think Tracy, because of the unknown, may have unrealized upside. Myers, I don't think has upside in this game. I don't think that the Raiders are scoring many points. Myers is your safe floor, but if you're worried that Myers has no ceiling and you want to roll the dice, then you would go with Tracy, saying maybe the unrealized upside and he breaks a big play and you go there. But we have seen nothing to quantify that. Martin, JSN, or Kirk. I got to go with Kirk. Kirk, 2 weeks in a row, significant target volume. No Evan Ingram. The slot corner, Kenny Moore, is out. And JSN, although he's been getting targets, he's been like kind of like a little up and down. Whereas Kirk is those 2 games in a row and he's riding hot right now. So I would go with that. All right. And then Chase Brown, Waddle, and Whittington, pick two. Again, Whittington, there was a lot of short stuff last week, and I there was nothing like that stood out to me and said, man, they're really gonna, blow this guy up. I think Chase Brown, it's a tough matchup, but he's getting enough looks, and teams got to play deep against them because of Chase. So there's free yards. I'm gonna go with him, and I am gonna go with Waddle here. I know he had some like manufacturer touches late. Another week, that they keep working on things. I'm not gonna. It's hard to trust Whittington there, I think. Joseph, Trey Sermon, Ramondre Gibson, Eckler start two. I'm gonna go Gibson and Eckler here. Yeah, you know what though? Now let me change my mind on that. Because we don't know what the true workload between Ramondre and Gibson is. There's so much uncertainty. Sermon probably gets 65% of the running back touches with Goodson mixed in. And Sermon has a good chance to score a touchdown here. I think he's more stable right now than the two New England options. And then I'm going to go with Eckler as my second one because, again, I think he's going to be an outlet against the heavy pressure that Cleveland should bring. United Santini, ETN, or Keon Coleman. ETN has been a little bit disappointing, but I do think his matchup against Indy is excellent. And even though he's getting about 11 to 13 carries a week, I think this is a week where you think ETN is in position to get a big play or two. So I think you trust him. Keon Coleman probably sees a good deal of Derek Stingley. And if in that scenario, that's a mismatch in favor of Stingley. And then you have Ford, Coleman, Moss, or Dell PPR. Ford is your safest play of all of these for sure. Ford has, should see some targets against Washington, should see some rushing attempts. If they, so I like Ford there. Moss doesn't have that favorable matchup against Baltimore. I do think if you want to have, again, you're risking a low floor, but Dell always could have that big play or two that we didn't see coming because we've seen the explosiveness last year. So I think you look at it that way. Ford is a safe play, and it'll probably get you, 10 to 12 points. There's always a chance to score a touchdown too, 30-ish percent. And then, but Dell is the guy, if you're swinging for the fence, that you kind of take a look at. Master J3, good morning to you. Wandale or Pickens? I got to go with Pickens here. Dallas has no pass rush. They're going to be without both DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. And Trevon Diggs is banged up, and that really gives Pickens a great opportunity. Wandale, again, he'll see targets in the middle, but that's a lot of Devin Witherspoon, and that's not a great matchup. So I think Pickens is more likely to do well here. Master J3, Madison or Tolbert? Oh, man. Well, I don't know how many points Dallas is scoring here. And with Tolbert being the outside guy, he could see a good deal of Joey Porter because they'll get CD in the slot a lot. So there's that. So I would probably take the floor of Madison and call it a day because I don't think Dell's going to have garbage time. I don't think they're going to be trailing. And if they are, I mean, TJ Watt's pinning in his ears back. So I'm going to go with Madison there. Steve, FFPC tight end premium, half PPR. Running back and a flex. Hill, Chase Brown, Stevenson, Ertz, P. Ryan. Given this group, I am going with Tyreek. They just missed him on that easy touchdown last week. That was very disappointing. Yeah, it looks like Aaron Jones. We may not be seeing him today. We still got Ty Chandler in the game. Hopefully he's healthy soon. All right. So you're going to go Tyreek Hill for sure, and that'll be your flex. And you need a running back then. I'm inclined to go with Chase Brown. I don't like the matchup. Again, as I was saying earlier, teams got to play back against Cincy, and we've seen it. They're giving them free yards. So the coaching staff is taking them. They're running the ball in situations they should be passing because they say, all right, if you're giving us this, we're going to take it. So I think I'm going to go with him for that reason. Master J3, as I turned my eyes to watch this game and the screen to Chandler, that would have gone Aaron Jones. Gee, thanks. Dontavian Wicks, Josh Downs, Xavier Leggett, Tyreek Hill, pick one. Oh man. Just Leggett's playing the Bears, going to rule him out. Obviously, it's so hard to sit Tyreek Hill. Downs played great with Flacco. Wicks is if Green Bay has to pass, he could go off. If the running game of Josh Jacobs gets rolling, they might not need him as much. Obviously, as you understand, these all have risk. Downs, like I said, we love what he did with Flacco, so that's a great thing. But like I said, I just keep seeing in my mind that missed touchdown to Hill last week when he was wide open. And if he hits that, it's a whole new narrative. I still think though that Indianapolis and Jacksonville game is going to shoot out, and I do like Josh Downs for that reason. But again, if Flacco has that egg game, that's always there. So I am giving Downs the slightest of edges, but I seriously consider Wicks because if Josh Jacobs doesn't get going and that game shoots out, which it could, the Rams could get going, then Wicks could have a week winning performance for you. I would probably play them over Tyreek at this point, though. Shookson, good morning to you. McLaurin, Olave, or Shaheed? McLaurin's had 2 games in a row, but they played 2 awful defenses. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And they didn't have pass rushes. Well, they're going to see a pass rush this week. So I don't know how much downfield passing gets going here. So I'm nervous about McLaurin. Olave, to me, I know the Chiefs are a great defense, but Olave gets open and they're running him on better routes. It's not all these go routes. They're getting him in the middle of the field more. You're already seeing it. And so I'm going to give Olave the edge here because I think he has a more stable floor. Shaheed, again, it's real week to week with him. He had a goose egg 2 weeks ago, and then he goes 8 for 80 last week. He had the 2 big plays early in the season. Olave seems more stable. I have a super chat, Steve, before I get to you. Steve, you got Rico Dowdle or Tyrone Tracy. I think it's a miserable matchup for Rico Dowdle. Man, Pittsburgh is going to be a nasty matchup. I could see Dowdle getting 12 carries for like 18 yards. I could totally see that happening. I don't even know that he's a goal line back. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know how much they're going to get in the red zone. Dowdle is safer. I'm at that for sure. We know Dowdle's probably going to get 10 touches. That we could say. Tracy, we don't know for sure. We don't we have no idea if Eric Gray's going to be. Honestly, everybody's assuming Tracy's the lead. I'm like, maybe, but maybe Tracy's role is the same as it was without Singletary. Maybe Gray moves into that role. I mean, I know it was preseason, but I remember Gray had 2 big runs. I mean, we haven't seen that from Tracy. He only had 12 touches, but we didn't even see that from him in the preseason so much. So Dowdle's safer, but Tracy has an element of upside, and he could catch 4 passes, 5 passes. It could happen. So I think Tracy's more intriguing. Dowdle, I just don't think there's any upside in a real rough matchup. All right, let's see where I was at on here. Steve, I was on your question here. All right. 2 of the 3 running backs for PPR. P. Ryan, Emmanuel Wilson, or Sermon. I definitely want to go with Sermon here. I think he has the best path to some playing time in a matchup I think he could take advantage of. Emmanuel Wilson and P. Ryan both in timeshares. I think there's a good chance that the Packers should get a lead in this thing and Wilson could get some work late. But P. Ryan saw 40% of the snaps last week. Now, I don't like the matchup against New Orleans so much. I would tend to give Emmanuel Wilson a very slight edge over P. Ryan because of the matchup. That's where and that one's like, but if you have a gut feel on P. Ryan, go with it. But I'm going to say otherwise, and we kind of have to look at Emmanuel Wilson as the second to Trey Sermon. It's a tough call on that. If you got a gut feel, go with it. I got to plug this in real quick. Everybody give me a second. And then next question, let me see what I got here. Got to plug in the source here I'm watching the game here. All right, let's get back to this here. There we go. All right. And Tom, Love or Daniels? Somebody had exact same question earlier, Tom. And I told him, I go, right now, and look, I know Cleveland's a tough matchup. I get it. But when I'm thinking about it, it's like Jaden Daniels has given me no reason to sit him, and he can run. Even when he's had a bad passing game, I remember the one game he ran for like 80 and 2 touchdowns. And Jordan Love, he's great, but if they get going on the ground with Josh Jacobs and they control the game, they might have to throw a lot. So I think just Daniels has that high floor and that crazy ceiling. So I just think you kind of give him a whirl and roll with it. I spy full PPR start too. Flowers, Jennings, Downs, and Sutton. All right, what do you got here now? Let's see here. I am going to go with Downs for sure in this one with Joe Flacco. I think that's great, and the matchup is great against Jacksonville. They don't really worry me too much. And the Flowers, even if the pass rush gets going, that's even better for him. Flowers and Sutton are interesting because Flowers, the whole thing is they didn't throw the ball the last 2 weeks, so he didn't do anything. When they had to throw it the first 2 weeks, he did great. Now against Cincinnati, it would look as if they could run the ball all day. And if they can, then Flowers isn't going to be involved. Sutton, last week, the quarterback threw for 60 yards. Sutton had 60 yards. That completely improbable. But the matchup against the Raiders is not bad. It's not a bad matchup. I would say I still would be inclined to go with Flowers, though. I wouldn't be inclined to go Flowers because I think this game ends up being a little more competitive, and I do think they're going to throw a little bit against Cincinnati. So I would give Flowers the edge over Sutton. I just don't think Sutton has much of a ceiling with his bad quarterback. David Wandale or Jennings. Again, Jennings, every week his role is going to decrease. He's a great blocker, and yes, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's a good player. But you've got Ayuk, you got Debo, you got Kittle, you got Mason. He's the fifth option. And Wandale today is the first option in the passing game. I know he plays 70% of the time in the slot, and it's a tougher matchup. But Wandale is going to get a number of catches here. So I'm just going to go with the safety of Wandale for the floor. He said the only game he didn't have big yards, he scored a touchdown. So there's that. I just don't. It's hard. Jennings is a great player. I just don't trust him because of his role. Steve, half PPR. Would I play Javonte Williams over Higgins or McLaurin? Oh yeah, thanks for recommending hitting the like. So Javonte had 77 rushing yards last week. They finally got things going. The Raiders are a good matchup for him, and with Bidet out, who was making a little bit of noise, there's going to be some volume there, and he's seeing targets. But I can't play him over Higgins. Higgins has had, was it 6 catches 1 week, and he had like 10 targets last week. So he's getting targets, and Baltimore is not the scariest pass defense these days. So I wouldn't play him over him. McLaurin's interesting because the 2 easy matchups he went off, the 2 moderate matchups he didn't do much, and I think Cleveland is more difficult than not. So, but would I play Javonte over him? No, I don't think I would, because Javonte, if he doesn't get those catches, he just isn't playing well. So, yeah, it's a great question. I would stick with McLaurin, even recognizing it could be a tougher week for him. All right, I got another super chat question here. OG Bobby. Juwan Jennings or drop him for Sutton, Whittington, Downs, or Atwell? I would. All right, yeah. Watch Jennings go for 50 points again, right? I would go with Downs. I mean, for this 1 week, the matchup's great. Joe Flacco obviously had a quick connection with him, and I have to go with it. I have to go with, Josh Downs. I have him ranked very highly for a reason. This one, Whittington gets short stuff. Atwell had the 2 good games, but to count on him, that's a tough one. So yeah, I'm gonna in Sutton again. The matchup's not bad, but it's not enough for me. I have to go with Downs in this one and hope that Flacco has the game. It's a great question. All right, so where's I at here question wise? All right, I think I'm done. This always bounces off when I do this, so I got to find where I was at. It's going to take me a minute, everybody, here to find him here. So weird. It feels like I totally lost him. Oh, here we go. Let me see here. Hopefully I'll miss my. Let me see. Steve, I think I answered yours. So I got you there. And Vinny, I think I got you. Oh, maybe we'll have a Vinny. That should be about right. All right, Vinny. You've got. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. You got Kirk or Downs. That's that is like, that's literally a 50-50. I trust Kirk's connection with Lawrence Moore. Slot cornerback Kenny Moore is out. So I definitely would tend to lean toward Christian Kirk. Flacco will be more likely to have one of those games where maybe he didn't connect in the same way. Yeah, I've recommended him other people because I love them. It's a 50-50. They're both great plays, but I think I'm going to trust Kirk a little bit more because of his connection with his quarterback that's been established over some time. Tyler, Ford, Hunt, Dell, or drop Dell for Downs? Yeah, good question. This the Downs thing's going to come up a lot, and it's a obviously, as you heard me explain, it's a very reasonable call because I think that Downs is an excellent slot receiver. Ford, you got to play for his floor. Hunt, again, he had a good game last week. It's a much tougher matchup this week. Um, I don't think I dropped Tank Dell. I still think that Tank Dell, even though I know they're seeing more shells this year, I still think you drop Dell, you may pay for that down the road. And I think for 1 week, that's not worth it. I think that's not worth it for 1 week. Jordan Addison's finally on the board with a catch. Yay. So yeah, I would stick with Dell for the long term and not do the short term move going for Downs and Ford. Lee, Stevenson, or Sermon. Oh man. Lee, that's where we're in a little bit of trouble with this one because the problem is that Stevenson, we don't really know what his punishment is. Does he not start? And then does he end up getting 60% of their 70% of the work later in the game? Or is it Gibson's getting the lead until he proves otherwise and Stevenson changes? But because of that uncertainty, I mean, Sermon's in a backfield where he's going to share it with Goodson as well. But Sermon should be in good shape here. Because of the uncertainty with Stevenson, I would be more inclined to go with Sermon. But man, if Stevenson's punishment is like the first quarter and then he comes in and then he ends up doing well, that's going to be something to think about. But I think Sermon's safer. Sutton or Worthy? I like Sutton here. He doesn't have much of a ceiling, but they're getting him targets. Worthy, we've seen it. I mean, since week 1, there hasn't been a lot. He did get over the top of the defense last week, but I don't think New Orleans makes them. And Dennis Allen's not going to make that mistake coaching it up. I think he's going to have a safety over the top on him. And I think that we're going to see those limitations of Worthy when there's a safety there. Chris, appreciate you, man. Thank you. And you got half PPR Lee Getters. I'm going to go Sermon here. I think Lee Getz sees enough snaps on Jalen Johnson to make me nervous. I like what he's done the last 2 weeks, but I think Sermon has a clear path to work here. And again, he'll split some, but I think he has a great chance to be a goal line back too. And it could be Joe Flacco, right? Yeah, I'm going to go with Sermon there. Sleek, Akers, or Josh Downs? I got to go with Josh Downs here. Akers, about 40% of the snaps. Ogunbowale, about 40% of the snaps. J.J. Taylor mixes in for the rest. If they're playing J.J. Taylor 15, 20%, that tells you their trust level on Akers. If Akers falls in the end zone, fine. He is just not good, and the Bills are decent enough against the run. Akers has shown us what he is in the last couple of weeks, and that's Josh Downs, 8 for 82 and a touchdown last week. Akers can't sniff a game like that, I don't think. Now that I said that Akers goes for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, right? But I don't see it. I go Josh Downs pretty easily there. Jay-Z, Kirk or Deontay Johnson? I mentioned Lee Getz going to see some time on Jalen Johnson. I think that Deontay Johnson will see time on Jalen Johnson as well. I don't think he's in the shadow. I think it's going to be like sides. And I think and then also Andy Dalton is going to have a difficult matchup for once. I'm going to go with Kirk here. Even though Deontay Johnson is on fire, Kirk's had 2 big games in a row as well. And I think the Indy game shoots out. Remember, that slot corner, Kenny Moore, is out. And that's a big deal. Joshua, bench 1, Jacoby Myers, Xavier Worthy, or T. Higgins. All right, so I won't bench Higgins. And here's what I'll tell you the other 2. Myers has the safer floor. He probably gets you 3 or 4 catches. He probably gets you 25 to 45 yards. Worthy is your boom bust. If he does get over the top. I think Dennis Allen will have a plan for him over the top. But if he gets that reverse like he ran in week 1 and takes it a long way, Worthy has a floor of like 2 or 3 points. But if he breaks one, he's got your big game. So it depends what you want. If you just want a bankable, reasonable amount of points, you start Myers. If you have to swing for defense, I don't think Myers has that game in this one. Denver's like a legit defense. They've been playing great. So that's how I'd look at that one. Quinn, full PPR, DK or Marvin Harrison. Wow. That's man, you're in a heck of a league there. Those are like 2 early draft picks. I think DK has really shown have a great role in this offense, and it can't be understated. Now, I do have Marvin Harrison ranked higher, so there's that. But they're running him on too many deep routes. That's a tough call. I have Harrison ranked higher. I think he's more of a focal point of their passing attack. I think that if the Seahawks get busy running the ball and they get a lead, they might not have to pass a lot. I'm going to give Harrison the edge, but if your gut says DK, man, DK could drop a 30 on him anytime. He could drop a 30 for you. I think I might have another super chat question before I get to Tristan. Let me see what I got here. Yeah, I do. All right. KS Mav. Thoughts on Nico, Wicks, Brian Thomas Jr. benching Olave? Nico's an auto start, and he is a perfect solution for today's zone defenses. He gets to the second level on these crossers, and his quarterback's willing to stick the ball in there, and that's the way to beat it. That's the way to beat you too high. Nico Collins is the perfect antidote with CJ Stroud. So there's nothing Buffalo could do schematically, and their corners are good, but they're not Nico Collins good. So you play Collins every week. I look, if we're redrafting this year, he's top 3 pick in my mind. His worst game is 86 yards. Can't sit him. Brian Thomas Jr., it's an easy matchup. It should be a shootout. He's had 9 targets, I believe, in 2 straight games. It's not a bad matchup. Wicks, the whole thing on Wicks is, and I'm saying, if they have to pass, he could go off here. All you need was an opportunity, and he has the opportunity now because you got Watson and Dobbs out. So he's in line. He's a number 2 there. And he should have potential for big game. The only thing we worry about is if Josh Jacobs gets going on the ground, then he certainly could in this game against the Rams. They might not need to pass as much as usual. And so that's the only risk. But if they have to pass, Wicks is deadly here. Olave, again, I get what the Chiefs are, but Olave, they're running him on a lot more clever routes this year. They're getting him over the middle instead of those go routes, and they're weaponizing him. Now, the targets haven't been where we wanted them. I just don't. Olave's a superstar in my mind, and it's really hard to find a reason here to bench him because he's played well the last few weeks. So I would not bench Olave. The player I'll say this. I would play Nico 100%, and I would play Olave, and then I would say this. Wicks would be my boom bust play. And Brian Thomas Jr. would be the high floor play because I think he has a high floor. I don't know that he has a massive game. Wicks could have a massive game. So if you want the safety, go with Brian Thomas. If you want to risk some floor for some ceiling, then it'd be Wicks as your third one. All right, see what we got here. So I can find where I was at here. We had Sleek. We had that one. Got that one. All right, my Tristan now. Okay. Should you trade Ayuk for Garrett Wilson? Yeah. That's a tough call. You know what? That offense in New York is toxic right now. And as long as they have Nathaniel Hackett, they're in trouble. They're in real trouble. So Ayuk is in an offense where we've seen him perform. So I think he has a better chance of getting it figured out. So I would keep Ayuk. Fields or Love? Fields has a great matchup. I don't know how much scoring is in this game or how much they'll have to score. I'd be inclined to go with Love in a game that probably shoots out. There's a good chance of shooting it. The Rams could keep up on the scoreboard a bit. So I would be inclined to look that way. Joshua, Juwan Jennings, Keenan Allen, Marvin Harrison, Tyreek Hill, bench 1. I know what Jennings had 3 for 88 last week, but again, every week his role is going to decrease. It's not like the genie's out of the bottle and you put him ahead of Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. That can't be the case. I've got to bench the player who's the number 5 option in his offense. Keenan Allen's close because I don't know what his true level of health is. So if you feel real frisky about Juwan Jennings and coming off that big play he had last week, then I would consider it, for Keenan Allen. And given this group, I wouldn't bench Hill. JKM83, happy game day to you as well. McLaurin, Juwan Jennings, kind of same deal. Jennings keeps coming up, and I get it. He had a massive game. Then he had 3 for 88. I get that. McLaurin, I don't like his matchup because the pass rush is going to be a real problem for the quarterback. He's had 2 good games in a row. 2 games he played against decent defense. He did nothing. But McLaurin is the focal point of the passing game when they want to throw to wide receivers, and Jennings is the number 5 option in his offense. So I got to go with McLaurin for that reason. Chad, Scott Fishbowl situation, Komet versus Gibson. Oh, or Huntley. Oh my gosh. Man, if Huntley wasn't playing New England, and I know New England's got Jabril Peppers out, and they keep getting losses on defense. But man, they got 1 week of game film, and that's probably not good either. Gibson, like I said, he's starting. Does that mean he's going to play all 4 quarters of the lead? Does that mean Stevenson's going to get a chance to redeem himself? It's risky, but Cole Kmet's risky because the Bears might be able to throw to whoever they want, whenever they want. And they might be able to run the ball too. So I would be inclined. Well, Huntley can run a little bit. I guess because of the running ability, I'd give Huntley the shot on that one because there's so much uncertainty around the other players. At least Huntley's starting. So I go Huntley. Downs or Javonte. And if I said Vinny, I'm going to go with Downs here. Javante's kind of tough to trust right now. He had 77 yards last week, which is nice, but he just hasn't looked good. So I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna go with Josh Downs. Like I said, he looked great with Joe Flacco. Tracy or Ramondre? Nicholas, good question. We truly don't know what Tracy's real role is. Again, the peripherals on his 12 carries have not been good at all, so that's a problem. Ramondre, we don't know what his role is. I know he'll get some work. I know he'll be determined when he gets on the field. I think Tracy has more upside, though, because if he catches 3 or 4 passes, is that Aaron Rodgers on the turf? Aaron Rodgers is crawling on the turf. He's rolling on to the side. Well, we'll see what happens there. Wow. Might be Tyrod Taylor time. Oh, man. I don't know what's up with Rodgers, but he's not doing well. All right. Nicholas, I would go for, if you want to go for upside here, I would go with Tracy. I do think Ramondre Stevenson has a better floor, but that floor might not be a whole lot of points. So if you want to take a chance for upside, it would be Tracy. And Chad Buffalo did get Bernard back. Decent tackler. I don't see him as a big playmaker, but yeah, I don't think that doesn't really move anything that you're talking about in terms of Houston. That doesn't really move the needle for anything that Houston does. I don't think that makes any difference because you're not trusting like Cam Akers, so that's not like a big thing there. Let me see if any injury. Let me check any injury updates here. Let's see what we got here. And Sauce Gardner's in the concussion protocol, which that's not good for him. Kendrick Bourne is active, but you're probably not trusting him in that offense right now. Be nice to see if they use him in creative ways they did in the past, but it's a new coaching staff. Cincinnati slot corner Mike Hilton is out. If Flowers moves to the slot on occasion, that could be helpful for him. And no notables for Carolina. Raheem Mostert is active. I think you trust him as a running back 3 here against the Patriots. I think that if he's healthy enough to go, he's still capable of big plays. Buffalo, we knew Khalil Shakir was out. We already knew that. We knew that Ed Oliver was out. Taron Johnson, their slot corner, is out again. He was a game time decision, and that is huge for Stephon Diggs. I don't know what they're going to deal with him. Evan Ingram, as expected, is inactive. We knew that. Brenton Strange is a dart throw. Looks like Aaron Rodgers is okay. He's jogging off to the side, so that's a good thing for Aaron Rodgers. Brenton Strange is a dart throw. Oh, on the sheet, it's on the screen. The ones I have in green are players I have ranked, but there's upside to those players, I believe. The ones with red, I believe they're ranked, but there's downside beyond that as well. I should have pointed that out earlier. All right, let's go next to injuries. Brian Robinson is playing as expected. Damian Pierce is expected. I'm not playing. Jack Conklin, tackle, still not playing for the Browns, although they do get Jedrick Wills back. Anthony Richardson is expected, inactive. Aaron Jones was finally ruled out with that hip, but you probably knew that if you were watching the game. So there's that. All right, let's get back to some questions here. All right, we got Diffo. Well, Brees Hall finally got a little bit of a run, 9 yards or 10 yards. All right, what's up to you as well? 2 flex spots, PPR. Worthy, Thomas Jr., or Pittman. So Pittman for sure looks good with Joe Flacco in there. Brian Thomas is a great matchup. Getting targets the last 2 weeks. I'd call him the number 2. Worthy's your boom bust if he gets over the top and makes a big play, but Thomas could still outscore him. Worthy is too risky, I believe, and the Saints are a good defense. I'm gonna go with Thomas Jr. and Pittman there. P. Ryan or Chase Brown. Both have more difficult matchups. I was saying earlier, the Chase Brown thing is the Bengals are seeing all these deep shells and teams are giving them run underneath to run, and their coaching staff is saying, all right, we're going to run the ball when we do that. So they're getting free yards. P. Ryan has too much of a low floor. I think Brown's going to get enough touches to get some going there. So I'm going to go with Chase Brown. Morning, Albert. Hope for the best. Is George Kittle? Yes, George Kittle is expected to play today. It is a late afternoon game. So, yeah, you'll have to monitor that as well. If they surprise and act, you could just add Eric Saubert from the same team, or see if there's another player in the late window or night game window at tight end you can add as well. All right, good to see Aaron Rodgers back in. I will say that. All right. Impossible 0.5 PPR, wide receiver in a flex. Flowers, Kirk, Pittman, JSN, Tucker, Chuba. That's a lot of names. All right. I would be inclined. Hubbard's tough to sit because of the volume, and the Bears aren't like an impressive matchup. I would probably go with Pittman and Chuba here, but Kirk is really, really close. Again, slot corner Kenny Moore is out, and I love that. But the volume of Hubbard, they could use him as a receiver, they could use him as a runner, and Pittman, I would tend to go with them. Christian Kirk is really close, really close. Rodgers got dumped again. All right. Nate, Ramondre, Zach Moss, or Keenan at the flex? Don't like the matchup so much for Zach Moss. It doesn't have the explosiveness, so if he gets those free yards, but that's a tougher matchup at Baltimore. Keenan Allen, I'm not quite sure what his true health level is and his involvement in the offense. If Odunze passed him up. Ramondre, I don't know what this means. Is he just not starting and he's playing half, or is he just a change of pace guy? The most stable of this group would probably be Moss for some kind of a floor. I would probably be inclined to trust him a little more because Keenan Allen right now, I don't know what he is. And that's the problem. Zach Moss is the only one with any level of somewhat certainty in this group. Stroud or Fields? I think Stroud is more likely in a shootout than Fields is. Stroud doesn't have big fantasy games. He has one regular season game in his career with more than 2 touchdowns. But I think he can get the 2 touchdowns against Buffalo. I think he can get that. Fields, it's going to be – I think it's a low-scoring game. And I know the matchup's great, but if Pittsburgh doesn't have to unleash their passing game like last week when they were trailing, they won't. So I'm going to give Stroud the edge here. Fields has some real upside, but again, I don't know how many points they're scoring, so that's the whole thing. McLaurin or Sermon? I will tell you this, Chris. The safe play here is Sermon. He's going to get some volume. He has a good offensive line. The matchup, in my mind, is fine. So he has a chance to score. McLaurin's been very, very dependent on matchup this year. And if Cleveland's pass rush gets going, the downfield passing game isn't going to be there. But McLaurin could get a big play at any time, and he is their lead receiver. So McLaurin has low floor. He's a real low floor this week, but he has real upside. Whereas Sermon, I just think he's a strong across the board, solid play. He could get in the end zone. He has a higher probability of a touchdown actually than screen pass to Braylon Allen. Get him off the field. Seriously. Breece Hall is, I don't even get it. I'll stop ranting about this in a minute. You got a superstar, use him. More work he gets, the better he'll be. Anyway, back to your question. So, yeah, McLaurin is a boom bust play, but Sermon is a lot safer. I might have another super chat question. Let me see here. I got another Chris super chat question here. There you go. Chris, Allen or Daniels? Look, Josh Allen had 2 bad games. One is they blew out Miami so bad they didn't need him. He threw 19 passes. Last week, the Baltimore defense is perfectly designed to just wreck that offense. This week, that's not the case. Houston is a perfect stylistic matchup for him. So I'm not – look, Jaden Daniels is great. I'm not benching Josh Allen under any circumstance. And Jaden Daniels we'll see. We're going to learn a lot about him in this game because he's going to see real pressure for the first time all year. Najee or Kirk? Najee's going to probably get volume. Dallas has no reason to respect the passing game. So my guess is they load up the box as much as they can. So I'm going to give Kirk the edge here. All right, see what we got here. Let me see where I'm at question wise here. I got that. Chris, I got. All right. All right. Next questions. Why so high end, Kyler? Because Kyler has 47 or more rushing yards in 3 or 4 games. That's running quarterbacks in fantasy football have always been the cheat code. And when you run, and I know he hasn't been great, but 49ers defense is not good. They're a name. So if you're looking at the 49ers as a name defense, you have the name. Oh my God, 49ers are playing better. Look out. They're not good. They're not good. They're not getting consistent pressure. They're struggling at the second level. And so, yeah, and it should be a shootout. It should, in theory, be a shootout. Now, the Cardinals always find a way to disappoint us, right? So there's that. Mr. Light Jr., who do you start in your flex? The Flowers, but not too big on base. Yeah. I would be inclined, yeah, because that's the problem with Flowers, right? If they're going to run the ball like they have, there's not going to be any passing attempts. So that's the problem, right? So based on that, I would probably be inclined to give Tank Dell a shot here. Shaheed just so boom or bust. He had the goose egg 2 weeks ago, 8 for 80 last week. First 2 weeks, he had long touchdown passes. They're playing Kansas City. Don't really like that matchup so much for him. So if you don't trust Flowers, I would give Dell a whirl here. I don't like the Buffalo matchup on the outside. I think that's tougher, but they're going to have to focus on Collins and Diggs a lot, and I think that could benefit Dell. So Dell will be your pivot. Niners worldwide. Let's see as Rodgers gets them in the red zone. They're in this game at 17-7 Minnesota. Last minute of the third quarter, they're down inside the 10-yard line. It's interesting. All right, Niners worldwide. Achane or Moss? Look, Moss against Baltimore, probably not. Achane, I know the numbers have been great the last 2 weeks, but and I know he could lose a little bit of work to Mostert, but I don't think Moss has real upside here. So I think the floors are similar. Achane has the chance to make something out of nothing, so I'll give him the advantage there. All right. Should you trade Jamison Williams for Jerome Ford? I don't know what Nick Chubb's true level is, but I don't think he's far from coming back. And so if Chubb comes back, my guess is he has to be the engine to the offense. And I don't know what his whole health level is, but Jerome Ford's just a guy. No offense to Jerome Ford, but in terms of the running back landscape, he's just a guy and certainly not going to supplant Nick Chubb. So I would probably be inclined, I would be inclined to keep J-Mo. And I know the targets were low because they ran the ball down the throats of their last 2 opponents. I get that. Swift or Justice Hill? Hill's getting targets for sure. And Swift has a huge game, and it's an easy matchup. Swift will have more work. The matchup is simple. I would tend to give Swift the edge here. Justice Hill could just disappear at a moment's notice as well. So, all right. Tracy or Chase Brown? Not excited about Chase Brown's matchup, but I think he would have a little more of a potential for a stable floor. Because again, do we really know what Tyrone Tracy is at this point? And my guess is we probably don't. I think Tracy, like I said earlier, has unrealized upside because we don't know what he is. But again, that could be a trap door. So I think your safest play would be Brown. But if you need an upside play, I don't think Chase Brown is upside this week. So if you want to swing for upside, it'd be boom bust, but it'd be Tracy then. Wan'Dale Robinson or Sutton? The Devin Witherspoon matchup I'm not excited about. I'll tell you that. Sutton has a better matchup. He's getting targets. So there's that as well. And I've loved Wan'Dale all season. I think Wan'Dale gets more receptions, but the yardage might not be high. So Robinson is a better floor play, but I definitely think Sutton could outscore him, but he'd have to score a touchdown to get there. So if you want the safest play, it's Wan'Dale. If you have to risk a low game for more upside, then you might go with Sutton in that case. Another super chat, Fabian, Roshan, Juju. I'd go with Curtis Samuel there. Khalil Shakir plays a slot, and that's why Samuel, I think, hasn't been getting work. I was trying to preach that in the preseason, saying Samuel ain't getting on the field so much if he wants to play a slot because Khalil Shakir's our slot. So there was that. But now with Shakir out, I think Curtis Samuel has a great opportunity. You can make a case for Roshan scoring another touchdown for sure. Juju's intriguing, but I would go Curtis Samuel in this matchup. And then Achan or Najee Harris. Yeah. Again, I think Dallas is going to overload the box. I think they're going to say, we know you want to run, and that's the one thing you can do, and we're going to try to stop it. Najee's going to get volume. Achan could lose a little volume with Mostert back. Najee probably has a better chance of scoring a touchdown. Najee's your floor play, though. I think Najee is going to get 70 yards. I think he's going to get 70 yards in this game. I think that's about what you're looking at. And Achan, I don't know that he's hit that in the last 2 games. If not, it's not. I don't think he's hit 70 yards. Maybe he's close, but he did a big play. Now, could Achan have 2 big runs and go off? Yeah, but I think Najee has a much more stable floor here. So again, Najee is the player. If you want to get your 10 or so PPR points, maybe a touchdown, maybe you go to 15. I think you call it a day there. But if you need 20 from your running back, Najee, I don't think gets that. But I think if you need 20, then you'd have to go with Achan for that reason. All right, let's see what we got here. Where are we at here? All right, Cody, Kirk or Wandale at the flex. I'm going to go with Kirk here. Again, the Devin Witherspoon matchup is a little problematic for me. I love Wandale all year. I've got him on most of my teams, but I would go with Christian Kirk here. Kirk's been great 2 weeks in a row. No Kenny Moore to slot corner. Eric, Michael Wilson or Akers. Oh, man. I know it's been a bit. Akers is like playing 40% of the snaps. If he doesn't fall in the end zone, he's going to get you 5 points maybe. Not that Wilson's been any better, but I do think that I do expect some level of a shootout between San Francisco and Arizona. For that reason, I'm going to give Wilson a slight edge here. Raptor Jesus, Mark Andrews. So here's the deal. 3 weeks ago, Andrews went 4 for 50. It was a good, solid game, right? And then the last 2 weeks, they haven't thrown the ball, 15 and 18 pass ups. So nobody's eating in the passing game for the Ravens because very simply, they're not throwing the ball. At some point, they're going to throw. At some point, Andrews is going to be fine, but they're playing Cincinnati. Well, guess who can't stop the run? Cincinnati. And they're missing one of their defensive tackles now. I don't know why the name evades me, but Sheldon Rankins. Sheldon Rankins is out here. So I don't know how much they're going to have to throw. That's the whole thing with Andrews. If they have to throw, he'll eventually be fine. But this might not be a week they have to, so I'd be nervous with him. Right. I maybe mean Jalen Wright with a W. I'm not sure. Tracy or Dowdle. I don't know that Dowdle has any real upside here. Pittsburgh's going to be a nasty matchup. Tracy, we don't know what his real role is, but I think he catches some pass. So I'm going to give Tracy an edge here because of the potential for receptions. And maybe he has a bigger role. And if he has a bigger role, it's an easy one. But we don't know. Again, I still think Eric Gray's going to be a part of this thing more than people are intimating. All right. All right, where are we at here? Oh, Chad, good. That's a very relevant question. How much fab do you spend on Chandler? Volume. His annual six. No, it's not his annual. I want to point this out. Um, Aaron Jones missed about 6 games last year. In the prior 4 years, he missed a total of 4 games. It was 1 game per season. Go back and check the game logs on that. So that narrative, and I was trying to debunk that all off season. Now watch, he goes out for 6 weeks and then look like an idiot. But that's it. He hasn't had a big injury history like everybody talks about. Early in his career, I think he had a longer one, but he's been around a while. But anyway, that said, look, Chandler's going to walk into a volume role, and for volume in the running back position, you spend what you have to spend to get a running back. And so how much that is, you spend what you have to spend. If you think you got to, if you're desperate for a running back and it's determined that Jones is going to miss some time, then you might have to spend half your fab roll. If we don't get definitive word as of whether this is short-term injury, the short-term, and you aren't desperate for running back need, then 20% would probably be about right. So you really got to frame it that way. It's a great, great, great question. Dave, RotoWire member. Nice. I love it. Love it. Love it. Flex from Christian Kirk, Leggett, and Higgins. I'm not excited about the Higgins matchup with Baltimore. They've been great. They typically have done really well against T. Higgins in the past. Kirk, I think, is your upside play here because again, he's playing well and there's nothing scary. Kenny Moore's out there slot corner. Again, not that Kenny Moore's any good, but he's small. He's very good, but he's small. And so that said, I'm gonna go Christian Kirk because I think Christian Kirk is in a great spot here. Um, T. Higgins would have a safer. No, I don't think it's safer floor. I don't think it's safer floor. No, I think Kirk has a reasonable floor with Higgins, and I think he has more upside. Legate's going to see some snaps on Jalen Johnson, and Andy Dalton's a bad matchup for once. Oh wow, that's a good question, Nick. DJ Moore in a revenge game against Carolina, or Amari Cooper, who has a beautiful matchup. Washington does not get a pass rush. Cleveland Farrell is out, so there's that. So I would be Cooper's getting more varied targets and more targets. I would follow it. DJ Moore could have a big revenge game. He could go off, but Amari Cooper, in my mind, he had that 80-yard touchdown that got taken away was garbage. It was not a holding call. He got taken from that one because that should have been a big day for Cooper. I'm going to give Cooper a slight edge over DJ Moore. I think I have DJ Moore ranked higher. I have him 11 and 12. I'm 11. I'm right next to each other, 11 and 12. But I would give Cooper the edge here because the lack of coverage and pass rush for Washington. Jason, let me see how I'm doing on questions here. I got a bunch of spam stuff in here. All right, we're not at the point where I gotta. Yeah, all right. I'm probably gonna start doing more of speedy answers here to make sure I get everybody because most of the players I've analyzed for you. All right, Jason, PPR, you need to start two. Coleman, Yoshivas, Atwell, and Tolbert. I don't like Coleman's corner. When he sees Stingley, it's going to be a bad one. But Yoshi Vosman, I get a lot of targets here. I'd go with Atwell because he's running hot and they're using him downfield. Coleman would be your floor play because I do think he gets 5 targets here. But I don't know how much upside he has. So if you got to swing for defense, I think Tolbert has a floor of 0, but I do think against Pittsburgh, there's a chance where if they got to air it out, he could do really well. So Atwell's in. Coleman is your floor play. If you need a safe 7 points, I think Coleman gets you that. If you got to go the range 0 to 18, then I think Tolbert is in that window and you would have to go. But if you need the safety, it's be Coleman. Chase Brown, I'm going to go forward for the volume here. He should see a lot of volume. All right. All right. Let's see. Go back here. Trying to see how people are having a conversation in here. All right, Scott. Higgins or Kraft in the flex. So I'm going to go with Higgins because the volume's been very good 2 weeks in a row. Now, Kraft had the 9 targets last week, but there's a lot of different scenarios in this game. If Josh Jacobs is rolling on the ground, they might not throw as much. There's a lot of volatility with Kraft. Higgins, I think, is a staple part of the offense, and they're going to have to go to him. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Higgins because he's safer. And I don't know how big upside Kraft has. He had the game last week. But again, I just think that was kind of a one-off. So that's kind of how I'll frame that. All right. And then do you have another one in here? Let me see here. Tight ends get an extra half point per reception. I still going to stick with Higgins, even though I don't like the matchup. I just think there's so many variables for Kraft. And I really am getting this feeling that Josh Jacobs is going to have a big day on the ground, and that's going to make it difficult for the passing game. But trust your gut on that one, Scott. If your gut says Kraft, please trust your gut. I get it because, again, he had a big game last week. Doug, flex, Tracy, Akers, Madison, Jennings, Coleman. I'm going with Madison for the perceived volume, and he's used as a receiver a bit, and that'll help with no Zamir White. And then I think given all your other choices, Tyrone Tracy would be the most intriguing because I do think he catches a few passes here. I think he could have the most upside of the group. I don't think any of the other players have such a stable floor that it's going to wreck this choice. So I would be inclined to lean Tracy with the other one. Although again, I really don't know any of these guys' roles. And Jennings, I don't know. And Coleman's going to see some Stingley, so it's tough. I know I got to go faster on these. I'm sorry. John Brown. Morning news about Deontay or Ayuk. Because Deontay's been phenomenal last week and Ayuk's been terrible. So if you want to ride the wave, you keep riding with Johnson. But they've had 2 easy matchups. The Bears are not an easy matchup against the pass. Whereas Ayuk, he has another easy matchup, but he's done very little. Trust your gut. I would give Ayuk one more shot against Arizona that has no pass rush. They don't have coverage ability. Whereas Deontay could see a good deal of Jalen Johnson, and that could be a problem. And Andy Dalton could be under more pressure than usual. Achan or Swift. Wow. Swift had one good game and he had three horrible ones, but he has a super soft matchup. Shaq Thompson's out, Josie Jewell's out. Those are two linebackers. Thompson's gone for the season. Week 1, they lost Derek Brown. Swift has a beautiful matchup. Achan is going to have a lot of traffic around the line of scrimmage. I'm going to feel terrible saying Swift, but I'm going to have to because the matchup is just too good to be true. And he's getting volume. Even when he was bad, he was getting volume. And then Hill, Ayuk, Deontay, Wandale, Shaheed. You need one receiver. I think they all have similar floors. Shaheed is just very, very risky always, and it's a tougher matchup here. So that said, I'm going to give Tyreek a shot here because Deontay Johnson's matchup is not exciting me with the Bears. Tyreek's he just missed him on a long touchdown last week. I'm going to give Tyreek Hill the edge here against my better judgment, but they did just miss him, and they're trying to get him the ball. So benching Tracy and Jerry Killian, in comes Rico Dowdle. I get it, Steve. Zabby, 6 points. Should I start Caleb or Trevor Lawrence? I'd give Caleb Williams a shot here. No, very little pass rush, and they have J.C. Horn, but they've really been bad. Carolina, Trevor Lawrence. Look, can he have a big game? Yes, but he's proven in the last year and a quarter that there's more downside than upside. So I don't trust Trevor Lawrence at all. And do I trust Williams? No, but I'm going to give Williams the edge here in a great matchup. Oh, Zabby, I go Flacco over both of them. Steven, looking for thoughts on the second flex spot. Atwell, Tucker, Chase Brown, Dowdle. Tucker's problem is going to be that Denver's pass rush is for real, and those quarterbacks in Las Vegas, be it Minshew or even if they decide at some point to go to O'Connell, that's going to be a problem to get him downfield. That's a problem. Atwell's been running hot, and even when he was featured for 7 weeks last year, he did pretty well. Chase Brown is not a great matchup. He'll get a little bit of volume. Dowdle, I think there's no upside. Pittsburgh defense, I would think, is going to exterminate him. So I would tend to lean toward Atwell there. Ricardo, you asked this question, but Darnold obviously is playing in the London game, so it's a moot point now. John, JSN or McLaurin. So Jackson Smith and Jigba's getting targets, and there's nothing problematic about this match, especially if the Giants get their pass rush going. Smith and Jigba will be even better in the slot. I think he has a real high floor, and he could have a real good ceiling. McLaurin is a real low floor because that Cleveland pass rush gets home. And remember, they've had two cake matchups, and McLaurin's had good games. But the first 2 weeks when they had moderate matchups, he wasn't good. So I'm going to lean Smith and Jigba here. Ricardo, Purdy or Burrow? I got Purdy as my quarterback 6 and Burrow as my 11. I'm a little bit nervous about the Ravens matchup for Burrow. Can it be a shootout, and can Burrow throw for 4 touchdowns? Yes. But I think the more probable outcome is this game is around 20. So, but if you think it's going to be a shootout, if you think Ravens and Bengals shoot out, you got to go Burrow. I'm going with Purdy. I think Purdy's playing at a higher level. His weapons are reasonably healthy enough. And I think in a shootout, he gets it done. Let's see. All right, let's see here. Defo, 2 flex spots. Worthy, Thomas Jr. and Pittman there. That's what I'm going with those 2. Steve, good morning. You need one for your wide receiver, Kirk, Johnson, or Higgins. I'm going with Kirk here. Kirk has a floor equal to the other 2, and I think you could have a ceiling game here. Deontay Johnson, again, they're facing the Bears. This is the first tough matchup that Carolina's had since Andy Dalton took over. Mr. Polo Cash, Stevenson, or Madison? Because we don't know the true discipline for Stevenson, is he really just not starting, or is he going to be relegated to a change of pace? Madison's going to get some volume. He's not a good player, but he's going to get some targets. If they get in the red zone, he's going to have that opportunity. Madison is way safer because of the uncertainty around Stevenson. And it's not like Stevenson's going to go off against Miami either. Defense are just loading it up against them. I would be inclined to give Madison the slight edge because of the PPR there. Good question, Sick. Coleman or Leggett. Leggett's going to see some of Jalen Johnson. Both he and Deontay Johnson will see some of him. Coleman's going to see some Derek Stingley. I think the Buffalo game is higher scoring than the Chicago-Carolina game, so I'm going to give Coleman a slight edge. Izzy, Flowers, Chase Brown, Gibson, Odunze. Flowers has been bad the last week because they're running the ball so much. They're not throwing. They probably are able to run on Cincinnati. May not have to throw again. Chase Brown is a little tougher a matchup than he's had recently. Gibson, again, we don't know what starting truly means. Does it mean he's getting 20 touches? Does it mean he's Stevenson's benched the first drive? We don't know what it means. Because of that, I would be inclined to play Zay Flowers. I don't even know what upside Gibson has in this matchup. Odunze, it's been too many bad games. He had one big one in there, but now is a great matchup. I would be inclined to trust Flowers here. Sheldo, pick 2. Jerome Ford, Brian Robinson. Jerome Ford has a good matchup. He sees plenty of targets. He probably gets a little more volume than Brian Robinson here, so I would give him the edge. Next one, hello to you. Need 2. DJ Moore, Shaheed, Kirk, Wandale, or Higgins. I'm inclined to trust DJ Moore in that revenge matchup and an easy matchup for the Bears offense, and I would go with Kirk. Kirk's getting a lot of targets. Indy's down their slot corner. Kenny Moore, they're not getting pass rush. I would go with those two. They'll be I think they both have floor and ceiling. PJ 322, Madison or Huntley. Oh, man. I'm going to go with Huntley here because Madison had the long run last week, but he had like a 4-for-1 and a touchdown one week. We've just seen some real dicey productivity. He should get some catches, but Huntley runs a little bit. And I think that's enough to give me the edge. Do love multi-port to get out of the way. Multi-part to get out of the way. Half PPR need Stevenson, Sermon, Madison. You've heard me talk about the uncertainty with Stevenson. I really don't know what to expect. I think Sermon is the best shot of these 3. And Ayuk, Harrison, Olave, Deontay. You need 1 running back. You need 2 wide receivers and a flex. So I would go with Harrison, Olave, and I would give Ayuk 1 more shot. He's getting targets, and it's the easy matchup. So I would go with those 3. Deontay against a rougher matchup. Zabby, Wicks, or Ayuk? Wow. That's a real tough one here. I think Wicks has more potential for upside. If that game shoots out and they have to throw, again, I've talked about it many times. I'm worried that Josh Jacobs has a big game on the ground and they don't need to pass as much, but Ayuk hasn't done much. So I'm going to give the edge to Wicks coming off the big game and a number 2 option in an offense that knows how to use their receivers and scheme them up when and the matchup is nothing scary about it. Swift or Connor? I'm going Connor. 49ers are not a scary matchup against the run this year. Then they're name value. They're all name value right now. And Fred Warner is on a seriously compromised ankle from what at least I've heard. I could be wrong, but he seems to be gutting this one out. It's a big hit to their run defense. And Connor has gotten it done 3 out of 4 weeks, where Swift has gotten it done 1. He has a great matchup. I'm going to go Connor. Dave, Kirk, Leggett, or Higgins? RotoWire. Going with Kirk. Love Kirk's matchup here. Freeway, Swift or Brian Robinson? Wow, that's a great. Robinson's been getting it done every week. I'm not worried at all about Robinson's matchup. I think he catches some passes here. You just heard me talk about Swift. 3 bad games, and he had a great one last week, and the matchup is beautiful. I think Brian Robinson has a safer floor, but I think Swift could have a massive upside game. He could not, maybe not last week, but he could have against this opponent. He could have another massive week. So if you want a safe 10 to 12 points, it's Robinson. But if you want to go the gamut from 5 to 20, 23 even, I think Swift to be your play that way. You're not psycho for wanting to do it. If they have to pass the Packers, it works out. Olave is a true alpha. He's a pristine route runner. They're using him so differently. So now he's not getting enough targets. Wicks had more targets last week than probably Olave's been getting in 2 games, right? So you're not psycho at all for wanting to do it. I tend not to sit a superstar. I didn't sit Olave last week, and he came through. Wicks has real upside, but again, if they run the ball and they're successful, they might not need him. So I'm going to go with Olave. But again, you're not crazy at all, KSMOV case. You're not psycho at all. If your gut says Wicks, you go with Wicks. 100% you go with him. Pedro, thoughts on sitting Hill and going with Downs with Flacco? Yeah, I know. 8 for 80 and a touchdown's real enticing. Tyreek, just remember, they missed Tyreek on a wide open touchdown last week. It's a throw even as bad as Huntley as he probably makes if he throws it again. It's a great matchup for Downs, but Joe Flacco could have that game where he disappears. We see it. And so it's just so hard for me to recommend to sit Tyreek Hill. It's so difficult because we know his level. But you're not crazy for doing it. Because if Downs walks right back into that role last week, he goes off. But I have Downs way lower on my rankings because Tyreek can do it in so many different ways. It's a great question. Do I have another super chat question here? I do. I have another super chat question here. I'm sorry. It was a little while ago. I apologize. I just saw it now. Do I have 2 of them? No. Let's see. All right. All right. Next super chat question. Xavier Worthy or Zay Flowers? Dennis Allen's defense, they tend to be good at understanding a threat, and they will put a safety over the top, and that's about the only way Worthy could beat you if they don't. I'm going to give Zay Flowers the edge, despite he had not been seeing many targets because of the running game recently. But I think in this game against the Bengals, they may throw a little more. I'm going to give Zay Flowers the edge. Purdy or Kyler? I still think this game's a shootout. I think Kyler's been he had the 3 games of 47 or more rushing yards, and I think that gets going. And the 49ers are like Fred Warner's banged up. I think Kyler has more upside, but I think Purdy has a real stable floor. I have him as my quarterbacks 5 and 6 this week. So I think the safest play for you is Purdy. You want to just sleep well and say, I got my 20 points, then I think you go with Purdy. I think if you need a massive game out of your quarterback, I don't know that Purdy's having that here. I would go in that case, I would go Kyler. All right. All right, see where we're at here. Pedro, Harris over Eckler. Yeah, Harris should get volume. I think Dell's going to overstack the box here. I think Harris, though, has a higher floor than Eckler. But I think Eckler could see that all the Cleveland passers could see some dump offs, and that could be a big deal for him. Najee's safer. And I don't know that Eckler has his monumental upside. I would, in this particular matchup, I would give Harris a slight edge because of the safety. He probably gets 18 touches here. All right, next question. 2 running backs in the flex. ETN, Javonte, Sermon, Dowdle, Shaheed, and Waddle. I'm going ETN. I know he's been disappointing. Look, if he doesn't do it in this matchup, he ain't getting it done. I'm going to trust him this week in this matchup against Indianapolis. Being down DeForest Buckner, it's really a problem for them. And I think Sermon gets excellent volume. I like Javonte this week. I like Javonte. He had 77 rushing yards last week. They're throwing him the ball. I think Sermon is in a good situation here. I have Sermon as a safer play because Javante's really been struggling in a lot of ways. And Aaron Rodgers got sacked again. And then you need a flex. I don't like Shaheed's matchup. He had the 0 2 weeks ago. He had the 8 for 80 last week. He had 2 long touchdowns to start the season. Given this group, I think Waddle would have the safest floor of the group. If you need 20 points out of this player, then Shaheed would be the risk play that you go for it. But knowing he could get you a 3 or a 4 is in play. Waddle would probably get you at 8 to 12 points. And again, if he breaks something, then he goes higher. Jim, Robinson, Kareem Hunt, or Sermon. I am going to sit Kareem Hunt in a tougher matchup. I don't like the matchup as much against New Orleans, and New Orleans playing at home. Whereas Brian Robinson, he might be a little nicked up, but he's playing so well. And Trey Sermon, he should have 15 touches in this game. Pedro and Jigba has a higher floor. The Giants get some pass rush. The hot read should be the slot, and Jigba should have a really high. And I think his ceiling's reasonable. I have Hill ranked higher because he's Tyreek Hill. I can't just. It's so hard for me to rank Hill lower, but I would have very little issue playing in Jigba over him. Obviously, you know this. Hill could get 2 long touchdowns out of nothing at any time, and you know that risk is there. And Jigba's way safer. Mark Andrews starting, but he hasn't done much. Should I start him over waiver wire? Otten played Thursday night. I wouldn't play it. You know what? I get it. You got 2 goose eggs in a row. They haven't thrown the ball the last weeks, 18 and 15 passes. So, but he had a 4 for 50 in week 2 when they did throw. And Fant and Henry could get you 2 or 3 points. They could do better, but Henry's had 2 bad weeks in a row. So, all that said, personally, I would hope they're throwing more than 18 passes this week, and I would give Andrews one more shot. But if your gut has to go with one, it would probably be Henry. If your gut it goes away from that. Might have another super chat here. Let's see here. Danielle, you've got Josh Jacobs or Dontavian Wicks. Yeah, that's a great question. I've been breaking this game down over and over, and I just see a path for Josh Jacobs to go off. It's a very soft Rams run defense. I think this is one of those games you're going to see 20 plus touches, maybe even 25. And Josh Jacobs could have a rock solid floor. Now, Dontavian, if this game doesn't go that way and it shoots out, Wicks could go off. I think Josh Jacobs could score a touchdown, which he hasn't all year. He could score multiple touchdowns. I think Josh Jacobs is significantly safer, and I think either of them could have a big game, but I think Jacobs is more probable to have that big game in this specific matchup. If your gut says Wicks, I get it, and Jacobs has not been a great fantasy play, but this matchup is going to be one that he should be able to take full advantage of. All right, where are we at here? All right. Ayuk, Higgins, Wicks. All right. At this point, for everybody, I'm gonna go rapid fire so I get through your questions. I'm just gonna try to answer them. You've heard like input on most of these players, so hopefully you've heard my take on them. So Ayuk, Higgins, Wicks, McLaurin, or JSN. JSN has the best floor, and Wicks has the most upside of this group. I would be inclined to start JSN. Coleman or Judy, because Coleman should see some, at least half the time, some tough corner matchup. I'm going to give Judy the edge in an easy matchup. Hunt, Liggett, or Judy. You have Amari in already. Hunt, bad matchup. Liggett's going to see some of Jalen Johnson. I'm going to go with Judy as well here. I get it. Thank you. Appreciate you, Dan. Dave, Kraft, Patters, Colby Parkinson, Noah Fant, or Brenton Strange. Of this group, I'm going Tucker Kraft. I get it. All right. Ice cold OG Jones. Worthy or Jennings? Oh, wow. I just keep going back to Jennings as the number 5 option in that offense. He had a 3 for 88 last week. Worthy's probably getting used a little more than I'm going to go with Worthy. And I don't like the defense. I don't like the defensive matchup for Worthy. You've heard me say it. Worthy. Oh, you got one more. Defense. I'm going to go with Chiefs defense. Chris Jones gets that interior line missing 2 starters and a backup. Kmet or Gibson or Huntley. We're going to go with the quarterback there. I think you may have asked that earlier. Romy, Flex, Roshan, Jaleel McLaughlin, or Charbonnet. I'm going to go with Roshan here. He's getting a little work and getting goal line work. I'm going with Flacco there. I'm going with Love because it's probably a higher scoring game. And I'm going with Sermon because I think he gets volume. Flowers, Kirk, Pittman, 1 unit receiver, and a flex here. I may have answered this for you before. Chuba Hubbard's volume is great. I'm going to give him a shot in here. And then I'm going to go with Pittman next. I am going to go with Eckler here because I think he sees a lot of dump offs against the Cleveland pressure. Pittman for sure. Ford, if you want a high floor. Pickens could go off against Dallas, but he also could not need to do much in a low-scoring game. So Ford's your safe play, and your boom bust is Pickens, but go with Pittman. All right. Eckler or Sermon? That's a tough one, too. Sermon has a higher floor, and I think he gets goal line work here. That's a close one. I may answer something similar for somebody else here. I'm going to go with Eckler, though. Like I told you, I'm going to go with Eckler. Saying, you asked the same question twice. I'm going to go with Eckler here. I think he's some dump off passes. Jake, should you trade Chubb for Singletary? It's hard to answer. I don't know what Chubb's gonna be when he comes back. The offensive line should be healthier. They should give Conklin and Wills well, but Wills is back today. So I probably wouldn't. I probably would go with Chubb. All right. I would go with Pittman there with Flacco. Doug. I would not pick up Akers. I would start Madison, and then it would be I'll probably go Tracy next. Brian, Wicks, Kirk, Leggett, or Sutton. I will go with Kirk and Wicks in this one. Anna, Carr, Watson, or Dalton. I will go with Watson. This might be a week where he doesn't see a pass rush for once. I don't like the matchups for the other two quarterbacks. All right, next. Sermon, Downs, or I'm going to go with Downs here. The connection with Flacco is one that's exciting to me. Sermon has a really good floor, though. Could Lawrence go off? Yes. He hardly has in the last year and a quarter, so I'm going to go with Murray because he runs. Rob, McLaurin, Robinson, Worthy, Pittman. Pittman for sure. I'm going to go with Brian Robinson as my second one here. J. Cam, Dell, Bowers, Sermon, Jennings. I'm going with Sermon for floor or Dell for boom bust. Bowers may have to block more like he did last week because Mayer's out. I'm going with Connor in my mind. It's not particularly close. Oh, man. Akers is so bad. And I don't know. I'm going to give Ramondre a slight edge here. I don't even know what his workload is going to be. But I'm going to go with Ramondre. I'm going with Shaheed over Leggett because he probably sees some Jalen Johnson. I'm going with Tyreek Hill. The pass rush from Denver is going to probably slow down the deep passing game for Tucker. I am going with Flowers in the hopes they throw a few more passes than they have in the last couple of weeks. Justin, Fabian, you're welcome. I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid here. It's close, but Bowers had to block a little more last week with Mayer out, as I just said, and he may have to do that again. Kincaid should be in higher volume situation. Roshan, Tracy, Gibson, pick one. I think Tracy's going to catch more passes than the others. And I don't know what any of their real roles are. I'm going to give Gibson, though, a slight edge here because he's the most likely to break a long run here. Wicks, JSN has a high floor, and I think he has a reasonable ceiling here. I'm going to give him the edge. Answer that. Since Downs is the slot, I'm not as worried about him because that usually are kind of more the weatherproof throws. But if you're not confident in the weather, then I would go with Tank Dell. Waddle's really hard to start over those options right now, and I know Dell hasn't done much, but the matchup's decent enough. I'm going with McBride, even though he was a little dinged up. I have him as a top 2 tight end. I'm going with Pittman. A lot of possession catches. Packers D for sure. Commanders don't get a pass rush they can't cover. Akers, Brown, or Gibson. I'm going to go with Brown and Gibson. It's very, very close. I have them 2 spots apart in my rankings. I'm going to give DJ Moore the slight edge in the revenge game. I'm going with Denver because of the consistent chaos they're causing in the front seven. Hey, terminal sarcasm. Appreciate you, man. Thanks. P. Ryan or Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is a little more stable of a role. P. Ryan had 40% of the snaps last week, but a tough matchup. Hubbard or Robinson. Hubbard's getting so much volume. I'm gonna go with Hubbard for that because he gets it done as a receiver or a runner. Can't go wrong either way on that, Julio. Oh, David, that's a tough one. I don't know how much upside Madison really has, though. He had the long run last week, but he's been like brutal otherwise. I'm going to give Dell the edge here. Coleman or Dowdle. I think Pittsburgh can really shut down Dowdle. I'm going to go with Coleman here. Yeah. Roshan or Goods. I'm going to go Roshan Johnson. They're using him at the goal line, too, and the Bears should have a good day here. I might have a super chat question before I get back to Danielle. Well, Danielle may have asked that already. We'll see. Brees Hall finally getting near the end zone. Yay. All right, let's see. Oh, and then Joseph, Fields or Love? I think Love has a more likely to be in a higher scoring game, so I'm going to give him the edge over Love for that reason. Um, Fields may get some running here, but I think Dallas is going to put a ton of bodies up front and just dare him to win. I don't know if there's going to be a high scoring game to push it. And can you trust Leggett? The matchup's horrible. Probably half of the snaps he sees Jalen Johnson and Andy Dalton in his first bad matchup. So I think in any other matchup at Chicago, I think you could trust him. But Chicago is not a trust matchup for like any normal wide receiver group. The Bears defense is no joke. Danielle, you're welcome. Sergio, Tyreek, Judy, Atwell. All right, I'm going to go with Tyreek and Judy here. I know Atwell's had the 2 big games, but he doesn't have enough of a ceiling for me to sit Tyreek. Oh, what did I just do? I click something off here. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. Let's see. Appreciate you very much. Worthy, Wandale, or Downs? I think Downs is the best blend of floor and upside here. So I would be inclined to go with him for that reason. Again, we're sitting Atwell there. The hope is that Tua's back in week 8 and Johnson had 2 cake matchups. Remember the target level is unsustainable that he had the last 2 weeks. I would not make that trade. I would go with Trey Sermon. Keenan Allen I don't know what his real health status is. Yeah, I know he's playing, but he doesn't look right. Wow. I don't know what Ramondre Stevenson's real role is here, but I would trust him over Justice Hill. I would go with Flacco here. Great matchup for him. I would go with Flowers and Jennings. I don't think OBJ is going to be remember that quarterback didn't even throw for 100 yards last week. All right, good. We're about at the end here. I'll answer these last couple and then we'll call it a day. Derek, we are going with oh my gosh. I'm going to sound crazy. Ford is the best floor of this group because he should see runs and receptions. Downs has the most upside. So if you want the safest floor, it's Ford. But if you want a chance for some upside with a reasonable floor, it's going to be Downs. Ayuk right now, we're going to leave out. Ewan, appreciate you. Thank you very much. And then, we're going to go with Josh Downs there. David, you're welcome. And we said no on that one. You're welcome, Chef Boyardi. And Lee Getter Jennings. I'm going to give Lee Get the brief edge on this one. I'm going to give him the brief edge on that one. Jennings, again, he's less and less work each week. We are going Najee Robinson, Kareem Hunter, Connor for sure, and Brian Robinson. Let's go with the 2 best players there. Najee's probably see a lot of stacked boxes. You and Tracy or Akers. I'm going with Tracy. Akers, just if he gets lucky and falls in the end zone, but if he doesn't, he's only playing 40% of the snaps. I imagine Tracy has to see at least that. Max, appreciate the support. DJ in the flex, CD in Brian, CD Lamb, put in Brian Thomas. You have Lawrence, a quarterback. I don't understand. Have DJ in the flex, DJ Moore, CD Lamb. If you got CD, you got to play him. You have to play him. I would play him over Brian Thomas. Diggs I play Diggs over Brian. I rank them this way. DJ Moore as after CD Lamb's first, DJ Moore second, Diggs is third, and Brian Thomas. Where Diggs is in the slot, and that's a big advantage for him. Well, I'm going to go DJ Moore. I've been close, but DJ Moore, I think there's very little pass rush, and he should have a big potential game here. Pittman's a great play as well. Trust your gut there. Last one. I'm going with Trey Sermon for the floor. Everybody, good luck. See you next week. Make sure I have a super chat here. No, I don't.